our university wouldn't be where it is without the people in this room. So great leadership makes for a great state. Opportunity to do business in this state has grown every year thanks to the people in this room. So it attracts population. Population is good for football. The more I can recruit this state, the better off we're always going to be. So the better you make the state, the better off our football team's going to be. So I look at this as a team effort, and we got a hell of a team in the state of Georgia.
Nothing unites Republicans and Democrats into a team under the Gold Dome, quite like a UGA Bulldog National Championship topped by inspiring words from head coach Kirby Smart. Good evening and welcome to Lawmakers on this day 22 of the legislative session. I'm Donna Lowry. More on the magic that Coach Smart brought to the Capitol in just a moment. On the show, we'll look at a bill aimed at preventing deaths in elevator accidents like the one that killed a teenager in Atlanta last summer. The bill's author joins us. We'll also look at efforts to keep tens of thousands of Georgians from losing Medicaid, and a look at legislation to help those who donate their organs to save the lives of others. The Senate's Chief Deputy Whip joins us to talk about the Gift of Life bill. But first, we head to the Gold Dome and our hard-working Capitol correspondent, Brenda Waters, with a look at today's news. Hey, Brenda.
Hey, Donna. Yes, I'm one of those hard-working Georgians that the governor always talks about. But today in the House and the Senate, they had a special guest, none other than the head football coach at the University of Georgia.
It is great to be a Georgia Bulldog today. Please welcome Coach Kirby Smart to the podium.
I don't always like events like this because I want to be focused on next year, not last year. And if you sit too long, that guy over there across the state line will catch up with you. So the idea is to stay ahead. And the big thing for us is looking forward to next year. And that's kind of where we're at. We had 6 a.m. workouts this morning, and our guys are out there grinding as hard as they can. But we want to keep University of Georgia growing, both academically, athletically, in every facet, and we can't do it without the support of the people in this room. So thank you so much for being here, and go Dogs.
But then it was back to business. House Bill 1302 would mean money in the pockets of hard-working Georgians. It passed in the House 148-18, delivering on Governor Kemp's proposal for tax refund checks of $250 to $500 to taxpayers.
House Bill 1302 presents a unique opportunity for our General Assembly to put $1.6 billion back in the pockets of hardworking Georgians. This bill allows qualified taxpayers who filed an individual tax return in 2020 and 2021 to receive a refund when they file taxes this year. Single filers will receive $250, head of household filers will receive $375, and married couples filing jointly will receive $500.
This money would come from a $1.6 billion budget surplus the state had following budget cuts at the onset of the pandemic. Another bill that is top priority for the governor is HB 1188. This bill, sponsored by Representative Jody Lott, relates to child pornography and how criminal procedures for each act of child molestation will be charged as a separate offense. This measure passed 163-0. After Kirby Smart's Senate visit, a bill was passed that would allow parents to opt their children out from wearing masks at schools. It was debated on the floor. SB 514, the Unmasked Georgia Students Act, was passed, even though many school districts were relaxing their mask mandates this week. Also on the floor, SB 456, a Republican bill that would require a face-to-face doctor consultation before a woman could be administered abortion-inducing drugs.
The opponents of this bill will tell you that the FDA has dropped in-person evaluation requirements for prescribing these drugs. That's true, but the FDA continues to provide warnings of these drugs' harmful side effects. They specifically warn patients about obtaining these drugs in the mail, and they even cite 26 deaths, not including the innocent baby, from using these drugs. Again, opponents of this bill will tell you that it limits access to health care services by removing the ability for the patients to access mail order or telehealth service. That's false.
Democrats say this isn't about women's health, but another way to control a woman's choice.
The bill works to unravel the strides we have made as a society to increase access to health care through technology. If a woman is already seeking abortion care via telehealth and mailed prescriptions, then there very well may be a barrier to access that technology can remedy. Restricting the access is not going to make her change her mind about wanting the pregnancy. It will only make her feel trapped, frustrated, and hopeless.
Senator Ben Watson, who is a physician, says the bill just brings back pre-pandemic standards.
It is important to realize what we're actually voting on. A bill that moves us back to what it was, to a pre-pandemic state. A medicine that has significant potential side effects, that is required by the FDA to jump through certain hoops in a very important way that is very important to do. It requires a follow-up visit. It's a very important discussion to have. That's what the bill does.
Let me be clear, the intended outcome of this bill is to limit abortion access in Georgia with the hope that fewer women will be able to access their constitutional rights. Constitutional rights. And what's really cruel about this bill is that those who are already the most vulnerable are the ones who are most likely to be burned by this injustice. People who are poor, people who live in rural communities, people with disabilities, and people with color.
In the end, the bill was passed along party lines, 31-22. Later in the afternoon, Speaker Ralston held a press conference touting new tax reform legislation.
We have now cut taxes on Georgians not once but twice. And today we are here to announce that we will be cutting taxes on Georgia's families a third time.
The proposal wraps many of our existing exemptions up into a much larger $12,000 single and $24,000 married standard exemption.
Those tax breaks don't go into effect until next year. Well, that's my Capitol Report, Donna, but one thing is worth repeating. I think you know what it is. Go Dogs.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Brenda. All right. We're going to talk now about a few different bills. One to help improve the lives of those who selflessly donate organs, and another looking at increasing pay for those who serve in the Georgia legislature. Joining me are the Republican Chief Deputy Whip in the Senate, Senator John Albers of Roswell, and Democratic Senator Valencia C. of Riverdale. So, welcome to Lawmakers to both of you. I like saying that Deputy Whip thing. Do you like having that kind of a title?
Whatever works, cool. Donna. Thank you for having us.
Before we get into your bill, let's give everyone an idea of the scope of what we're talking about when it comes to organ donations. In 2021, in the United States, a record 40,000 transplants took place, according to the United Network for Organ Sharing. Also, last year set records for kidney, liver, and heart transplants. There were more than 6,500 living donors, and that's an increase of 14%. So a lot going on in that area. What drew you into this particular subject?
Donna, back in August of 2020, my older son was rushed to the hospital, and we almost lost him. And we found out that both his kidneys had shut down. It was devastating, but he was alive. But at the young age of 24, he had to go on dialysis. Very traumatic situation, but my wife and I do what we do, which is we went into fix-it mode. And we're fortunate because we are educated, we have a lot of good connections, and we're super type A personality. And I was very excited as we worked through that process that I got the greatest phone call of my life on July 1st of last year when the doctor said, "You're not just a match, you're a perfect match."
Wow.
And it was such a blessing. And on July the 21st of last year, just about 7 months ago, we walked into Emory University Hospital arm in arm. at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was successfully able to donate my left kidney to Will. And I am proud to report we are both 100% healed.
Wow, I feel like we should applaud or maybe cry a little bit. I mean, that's a great story, and it does take something personal to it, but you want to help others. So you've got Senate Bill 330, the Gift of Life Act. Tell us about it.
The Giving the Gift of Life Act is to get more people involved in giving of their organs and making sure that we can facilitate this process. And my goal was to get this list down to 0. I don't want one person in the state of Georgia waiting to get an organ. And we do that by 3 main parts of the bill. The first one is to make sure that living donors like myself, who donate either a kidney or liver, can never be denied or canceled from their life insurance. The second part of the bill takes a current tax exemption, which is $10,000, which was done decades ago, raising it to $25,000. And the last part of the bill is for employers, so they can get a tax exemption to keep both the donors like me, as well as the recipients like Will, on the payroll for up to 6 weeks, so they don't have to go into FMLA or lose their job or lose up all the time that they've saved up. This is one of the best return on investments in history because, most importantly, we save people's lives. However, the amount that the state would have to give up to do that is about $1.7 million, and the return is $62 million by getting people back to work and not having to have those enormous medical expenses of what dialysis or liver failure and those things mean. This is our calling. This is what Will and I are going to do for the rest of our lives, and when we're done in Georgia, we're going to do it in 49 other states.
Wow, so this really is your calling. Let's talk about the people who may be taken off the rolls. How much of a problem is that in terms of health insurance not paying for it?
Well, thankfully, what we found out through this process is anybody at any age can get Medicare if you're in renal failure or kidney failure. Most people don't know that, so I'm proud to have joined the Georgia Transplant Foundation Board of Directors, where we're working with Emory and Piedmont and all of the families that are directly impacted in this. Doesn't matter if you're a young child or you're a senior citizen, everywhere in between. It's an education process, and there's also one other thing I do want to mention, and that for us is most of us have signed the back of our driver's license and checked that box, donate organs. But do you know that almost every time your family overrules you at the time of your death? And because of that, people are not getting a lot of those organs that could help live on in others. So I want to tell everyone tonight who's watching this is talk to your family, let them know what your wishes are, and make sure that you can live on at the point that you're heading to heaven.
A good conversation. Make it clear that that's what you want. You signed up for it for a reason. I didn't realize that. It's a big percentage. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
We're not going to ignore you, but we're going to switch topics a little bit now and bring in Senator C. And the bill you've been pushing for a while, for years, has to do with raising the pay for lawmakers. Talk about it and talk about how long you've been talking about it.
Well, this is my 20th year serving in the General Assembly. Well, actually in the Senate, because I did 2 years on the House side. But I never thought when I ran that the pay was only $17.5, and it hadn't moved very much at all. And I've been championing a bill to give us a raise. I truly believe that you have not because you ask not. So I've been asking for quite a while, year after year, to no avail, but I hadn't stopped because I do believe that you are valued, but if you don't ask, you're not going to receive.
I know your bill this year, SB 252, has bipartisan support. So are you a little hopeful this year?
A little, but we'll see. Things are looking better. So, and more people are understanding that we, as a state legislator, doesn't make what the Congress make. Most people think we make what Congress make, and we are nowhere near there. But when Alabama makes more than us, Georgia, we got a problem.
And the big thing is you think it'll attract more people to become lawmakers.
For sure, because if you're a person who are giving of your time, and this is a lot of time. I mean, it's full time.
It's considered part-time.
It's full time. You don't stop on day 40 being a senator. My phone still rings. I still get invited to a myriad of things, but it doesn't stop. So you should be paid for your worth, your time. I don't mind because I've done it for 20 years, so that's validating. I don't mind serving because I know I was called to serve. And that's why I've been successful in serving 30 years total.
Yeah, because you served at the school board, Clayton County School Board.
That's correct.
Before that, I want to get something clear that's been in the news a lot. Governor Kemp's budget calls for a $5,000 pay raise for all state employees, including lawmakers, judges, and statewide elected officials. But it looks like that cannot happen legally for that group. People thought it was going to happen. I want you, Chairman Albers, to talk a little bit about what's going on there.
Well, first, I've got to thank Governor Kemp for investing in all of our state employees. He's done a fantastic job. What we're working on now is considered the mid-year or amended budget. Sometimes we call that the baby budget, and that gets us from now until June 30th. What we're doing is helping all our state employees by giving them a bonus in order to complete this year, this fiscal year, with a $5,000 pay raise, and then begin the next year as a normal salary pay raise. However, the Constitution prevents us from allowing legislators in the judicial branch from getting a bonus. So I think what you're going to see is it's going to be the full year budget. We'll be able to bring those through, which we'll be working on in the coming weeks. And when that passes, it'll begin July 1st of this coming year.
Yeah, and it was going to be just a portion of that $5,000 of $3,750, I guess.
So that would be a part of a bonus. But their salaries would also increase to make that $1,250 amount from now until the end of June.
So we're not going to see that happen.
Well, we won't see it for now, but we'll probably be looking at something beginning in the July budget.
It makes you feel good?
It makes me feel hopeful.
All right. You gotta keep...
I'll believe it when I get it.
You're gonna get it. So have you actually talked to people who've said, I'd like to run, but I just can't afford to make that kind of money, to make $17,500?
I have, and it's mostly been women, because most women are the caretakers of the whole household. And it does make a difference when you're not getting paid your worth.
Yeah, so you just think, just give them a little bit more money, might attract more people.
That's correct. That's my thinking.
All right, then. Well, you are certainly a great example for people who want to get involved, both of you. Thank you so much for coming in and tell us your personal story. Well, actually, you both have personal stories, I guess. So thank you so much. Coming up, legislation looking to prevent elevator accidents. That and more when we return. You're watching Lawmakers on GPB.
Cigna is a proud partner of Georgia Public Broadcasting and Georgia Lawmakers. Cigna's mission is to improve the health, well-being, and peace of mind of those we serve. More at Cigna.com to learn how you can help support your employees' physical and emotional well-being.
Lawmakers is made possible by Georgia Farm Bureau. With over 80 years of helping everyone understand the importance of agriculture in our state. After all, ag is Georgia's #1 industry. Food and fiber production represents over $74 billion in output of Georgia's strong economy. The Georgia Farm Bureau legislative team works to represent producers across Georgia at the state capitol during the session and year-round. Georgia Farm Bureau, the voice of Georgia farmers.
Georgia Humanities, connecting people and communities across Georgia to encourage conversation, education, and understanding. Find out more at www.georgiahumanities.org.
We are the Southern Environmental Law Center. At SELC, we not only take on the toughest environmental challenges, we win, forcing the removal of more than 250 million tons of toxic coal ash, defeating repeated attempts to bring offshore drilling to our coasts, and securing clean air and water protections for communities across our region. Your most powerful environmental defender is rooted right here in the South.
Welcome back to Lawmakers. We're going to focus now on health and safety issues for a few minutes. Joining me is Democratic Representative Matt Wilson of Brookhaven. Welcome to Lawmakers. And we're going to start with a bill dealing with elevators. Last August in Atlanta, 18-year-old Jamarcus McFarland was pinned in an elevator and he later died. Representative Wilson, I will say that story shocked all of us. Then we get in elevators all the time and we rarely think about it. Tell us more about what happened to this young man.
Well, such a horrific tragedy that happened not too far from where we sit tonight. Jamarcus was an 18-year-old college prep football player who was living in student housing just behind Atlanta Medical Center. And he was in an elevator with some of his teammates, and they were going to or from practice. The elevator started falling, but caught between several floors, and the doors were open, so they were trying to get out of the elevator. Several students successfully got out, but unfortunately, Jamarcus was pinned and crushed in front of his friends. And as horrific as all of that was, the worst part was what came out in the investigation several days later, was that this particular elevator had not been inspected by the state in over 2 years.
Well, I want to get into some statistics as we get into this a little bit more. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Consumer Product Safety Commission report elevators and escalators account for about 30 deaths and 17,000 serious injuries a year. Elevators alone account for 90% of deaths and 60% of injuries. And Representative Wilson, that bill you talked about, it comes down hard on these inspections. Tell a little about what should happen and what didn't happen.
Sure. So the law changed last year to require every elevator to be inspected once every 12 months. Before it was every 6 months. But elevators, that law was passed in 1980, and elevators are made to a higher standard today. They're much safer, especially when they're brand new. And the insurance department asked us to pass that law to give them more flexibility so they could target the older elevators, the elevators that the state hadn't inspected in quite a while. So once every 12 months, the elevator has to be inspected. This particular elevator had not been inspected in over 2 years, so more than a year past the deadline. And when the insurance commissioner was asked what gives here, he put it back on the property owner and said it is the property owner's responsibility to schedule that inspection. And so what this bill does is it ups the fines for the property owner if they fail to initially schedule that inspection and haven't completed within 60 days of the expiration of the last inspection. And then it asks the state to get more aggressive and get involved. If the property owner has had 60 days and hasn't scheduled the inspection, the fine is going to go from $500 to $2,500, and then the state is going to be required to step in. The insurance commissioner will schedule that inspection, and if problems persist, the fines go up from there. But the idea is that the state steps in and takes that responsibility where the property owner has failed to do so.
I can't imagine how many elevators there are in the state, though. That's a lot.
A lot. And the insurance commissioner is in charge of inspecting all of them except for in private homes.
Yeah, and I was going to say it falls under the Fire and Safety Commissioner, and it's something else to add to their plate. How are you feeling about this bill at this point?
We had a very good subcommittee hearing the other week, and so I'm hopeful. One of the things that came out, and of course the insurance commissioner responded that, what they really need is more funding for more employees. I wish the insurance commissioner would have included that in any of his budget requests over the last 5 years, but he's not going to hear an argument from me that we don't need more resources there. The state departments have just been emaciated over the last decade and a half due to budget cuts.
Yeah, it sounds like a good bill, and we'll keep up to date on that one. I want to switch now to another of your bills. HB 1273 is the Medicaid Continuity of Coverage Program. It's aimed at keeping about 500,000 Georgians, including tens of thousands of children, from losing health care insurance. Before we have you talk about your bill, I spoke earlier to Representative Sharon Cooper about the problem.
We are under, a health executive order from the president to keep people on Medicaid that went on Medicaid because of losing their jobs and needing insurance during the COVID crisis. He has just extended that again, so people are still on that program. And CMS sent out some suggestions on how to handle that, to gradually, let those people off, try to reach them, try to help them get coverage if they qualify for the Obamacare, or if their children qualify for other programs, and not just drop 500,000 people all at once, which our state does not intend to do.
Any disruption in Medicaid coverage for children impacted, what would that mean?
well, any interruption in care is not good, but you know, a lot of the children will probably qualify for our pediatric program that we already have. And so that's what the CMS is suggesting, is that you just don't drop people right away, that you reach out, try really hard by emails or however, whatever kind of information you have, and that you make a really concentrated effort to reach these people before they're dropped, and then you evaluate where they are, whether they continue on our Medicaid program or whether you need to help them find other programs, if at all possible, for themselves and their children.
If they don't receive a letter, how do they find out whether this coverage will continue? What do you suggest?
No, well, they're going to do everything possible to, you know, to reach out to them. They could contact the state if they've been on Medicaid. They could ask their legislators to see if they still qualified. But when the state is going to use every possible means and be able to share, the CMOs have a lot of information on patients, their emails and so forth, and CMS wants us to share that. And so, you know, every effort can be made to reach these people and to help them.
Chairman Sharon Cooper, and when she says CMS, she's talking about the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services. So Representative Wilson, tell us more about your bill, HB 1273.
So as Chairman Cooper was saying, during the pandemic, the federal government has required everyone on Medicaid stays on Medicaid, even if they lose their eligibility. But once the federal public health emergency declaration is lifted, we're talking about millions of people across the country and 500,000 people here in Georgia who are due to lose coverage overnight, or at least trigger a recertification process to determine whether they still qualify for Medicaid coverage. And so this bill enacts CMS's guidelines to require the state to use a full year to make sure we're not rushing this process like some other states are trying to do, 90 days in Ohio. Use the full year as the federal government has recommended. Also partner with the managed care organizations, the middlemen who are administering Medicaid. They have more up-to-date contact information for the recipients than the state does, because for a lot of these recipients, it's been over 2 years since they've had to file anything with the state. And this is a highly mobile population given their employment status.
We've seen mobile populations a lot in this pandemic. Keep going, though.
And so it requires the state to work hand in hand with those CMOs, get the contact information up to date, so that we're not just sending a form letter, but that we're using every available means of contact information. And then the third thing it does is it requires the state to pre-screen anyone who's due to be disenrolled from Medicaid to see if they qualify for any other government assistance programs. And some of the experts, the Urban Institute, who've looked at this, have crunched the numbers, believe that anywhere from 65 to 80% of this population, this target population, would qualify for some other government assistance program. And this is so critical, especially for Georgia, because we have not fully expanded Medicaid. And we have the third highest uninsured population of any other state in the country. 12% of Georgians do not have health insurance. That's why we've seen more than a dozen rural hospitals close over the last decade. It's why we have so much problem moving up in the rankings on our medical care in this state. So this is an urgent issue.
Yeah, but Chairman Cooper did say that this is all going to happen regardless of whether your bill goes through or not. How do you?
I hope that she's right. If only Chairman Cooper were running the Department of Community Health. My concern is that other Republican-led legislatures in other states have faced this exact same issue, and they have gone the other direction. Ohio, I just mentioned, passed a bill saying unenroll these folks within 90 days, and everyone agrees that is not nearly enough time. The last thing we need to be doing is adding to our uninsured population.
Okay, a lot to this. Thank you for coming on and talking about it. Unfortunately, we've run out of time for Lawmakers tonight. You can join us again on Thursday. Tomorrow we're off. Join us on Thursday, and we will have Legislative Day 23. Have a good night.